Hamish and I were in Sydney at the moment. We're actually, again, from the real Pro Clima Built to Last studio. We're at headquarters. Hamish and I got to share a single bed last night. It was cute.
We did not.
Did you really?
We definitely did not.
I was a little spoon.
It was. It was
Times are tough in the building industry.
Very explicit when we were actually booking that we were having separate rooms.
Separate rooms, same bed.
Very, very explicit.
Yeah.
Very, very explicit. But no, I went to the gym this morning with Air Boss Dan.
Oh,
to get up.
He's still walking. That's nice.
Well, I mean, it was a light session, given it was with Dan, so I feel pretty good.
I slept in.
Fair. Me too.
Actually, funnily enough, I was walking past, went on a nice walk through Coogee and came across a few passive houses there. Saw a lot of, there was one. It was in Coogee. It was, I think, ironically, the builder was called the Mindful Builder.
Yep. Or is it Mindful Building?
Mindful Building, yeah.
Mindful Building.
Is there any legal dispute there?
No, I actually think that when we were looking at names that we noticed that he actually had this name.
It was a bit after
and we're like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should do the Mindful Builder podcast. I think that's what
network,
we've got.
yeah. So anyway, you might be wondering who today's guest is. So Dave is from Pro Clima. What's your email job description?
Email job description is technical innovation engineer. I should know that better.
So what is really cool is Dave, you're originally a carpenter, and you've sort of transitioned into what I reckon is a really cool job, but you're probably a little bit more. Dan's obviously got a carpentry background, but you've gone through from understanding university degree to building science and stuff.
Hey, why don't we let Dave?
Yeah, but where I'm going to go is like, let's go back to the start. Just tell us who you are.
Yeah. Like you said, I did carpentry straight out of high school, just the classic apprenticeship into Cert 4. And
always Sydney based?
Yeah. Well, Sydney based, and then when I finished my apprenticeship, moved to Canada for a couple of years.
Oh, when were you in Canada?
Vancouver mainly.
When?
Longer ago than I like. 2014.
Oh, well, mate, I was there 2003, 2004, 2005.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Building or?
A lot of snowboarding.
Yeah, same.
I was in primary school.
A lot of snowboarding, lots of mountain bike riding. I went there for a season, stayed for 3 years.
Yeah, that happens, right?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of building there, not much, similar to you. Came back, just subbied for a while. And honestly, got kind of sick how money just turns to water when you're trying to subby. Like, you sort of wake up one day with a big fat bank account, and then the bills come through from the supplier, from your insurance, and it's just like, it got hard to sort of keep on top of. So I got pretty fed up, and then, just decided to go to uni, do a physics degree, and I found this job, and it's sort of the perfect match.
When did you do your physics degree? So
2020 to sort of end of 23.
So was it a broad physics degree?
Applied Physics.
So what's
Bachelor of Science in Applied Physics.
So you're going through really anything. You could have done any avenue.
Yeah, I had dreams of building rockets actually, but the more you try to get away from the building industry, the more it drags you back in. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense though that you're now here.
Yeah, I did laugh when I saw the job
relevant.
description. I was like, wow, that is the weirdest, perfect combination.
Yeah. Did you ever think that your carpentry and your new education would come together like that?
Not this specifically.
Yeah. How long have you been Pro Clima now?
Just a little over 12 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's the
It's like, I think this and the whole, I can see where this episode is going to kind of go, and it's going to give people the confidence that carpentry can be a starting point.
Totally.
It is the starting point. I love it as a starting point for almost any career.
Do you still call yourself a carpenter?
I like to gas myself up and say builder because I did my Cert 4, but no,
That's just like calling a passive house if it's not certified though.
Yeah, true that.
Ding, ding, ding. You said money turns to water when you're a subby. I really want to go into that conversation.
I've written that down too.
I really struggled with that, to be honest. It was one of the hardest points. There's like a big transition when you're a apprentice and you become a carpenter and maybe you do your Cert 4 and you're subbing, and it's like, where's that transition from doing your own work to subbing from someone else? And as you're transitioning, that's when it's really hard to sort of keep on top of your finances and, just even make heads or tails, whether you're making money or losing money. It sort of it was a lot for me, to be honest.
It's hard.
And were you hourly rate subbing, or were you quoting projects?
So it was that transition between hourly rate subbing to quoting my own projects that I struggled with. So like you'd get a big, $30,000 deck pergola sort of thing.
Yep.
Which probably wouldn't even get you footings these days, but that is
or
even
fuel.
Yeah, you feel exactly. The realities of sort of that, paying the suppliers, paying for the concrete that comes in, all that, and all the bills that go out, and then you get lump sum, and it's just managing. I wasn't good at it.
Yeah.
You can see how quickly a tradie ends up with a brand new Ram Newton, a boat, a jet ski, and then go, fuck, got no money.
It looks so easy from the outside in, and like you don't, especially when you see young fellas in their P plates with this brand new Land Cruiser, like leveraging all this money. You're like, don't do it.
I mean, forget about the boat, forget about the jet ski. Like, it's just the car. Like, you're absolutely right. 19, 20-year-olds driving around in a $60,000 car.
Yeah.
Like, how can you even possibly get ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about this morning with Dan, and we were coming here. Like, there seems to be this really, like, our tax system for so long has benefited buying these types of cars. And if you go to Europe, go to the UK, like, everyone's driving around in vans.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I understand are as cool, but practically speaking, like, I had a van for a bit. You don't have to tow a trailer around. You just open up
It's more secure.
Dan and I argue about this all the time, the van versus ute discussion.
Yeah, but do you know what? Dan
Dan
drives around in a freaking Mustang.
Yeah.
Like, he really can't, like, throw rocks in glass.
But the Ram, like, what is the point of that's not?
Okay, so I tow a lot. So at one stage I had a 79 series. So, I justified in my mind that I towed 2 or 3 times a week. I've since got rid of that, and now I'm in a BYD Shark. And I don't tow much anymore.
Yeah, right.
And
have you felt you don't need to as well? Like, you've realised,
well, I think the idea was that because I had the car, it was up to me to tow. And now it's like we've got a like an Isuzu truck, which, all right, we'll just get Jamie to pick it up.
Yeah,
that makes more
totally.
sense. So, look, I don't know. This is me after 20 odd years in the industry saying this, and it's easy for me to kind of look back and go, well, I should have done that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I know 10 years ago I wanted to have the Amarok or whatever.
Put your hand in front of the camera.
So, yeah, I get it. I understand.
Yeah, it's a learning experience that, like, when you're young and you start getting that first paycheck, you're like, and then the car salesman gets in your ear. He's like, "Oh yeah, you can afford these repayments."
What's a car salesman going to do? How do they know your bank account? But a few things on this.
Oh, no, hang on. Everyone's got this misconception that it's a tax deduction.
No, it's your money.
Like, you still, it is a tax deduction. 100% it is, but you still need to pay for it.
Yeah.
The money still needs to be in your bank account to pay for it. It's only when you kind of get over a certain threshold
100%.
that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, I'm realising this now because, I've got some high purchase stuff through the business, and, like, right now my motivation is to pay them off and then not have them.
Yeah.
Anyway, you live and learn.
Can we just, it's a very important part. Like, everyone wants to reduce tax. And they gloat, I didn't pay any tax. I tell you what, if you didn't pay tax, it means you made no money.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, like, the higher if you say, I had to pay 100 grand in tax last year, it means you did pretty well. But you should be wanting to have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in end of year tax payments, because that means you're profitable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good when you say that money goes to water. Anyone out there that has this problem, Profit First is a great book on this. What it does, and it's called Profit First for tradies. It sets your bank account into like 5 or 6 different bank accounts. So I have this, so money comes into one account, it's my income account. Then I have a materials and subcontractors, I have an OPEX account, I have a owner contributions, a GST, a tax.
Staff liabilities.
Yes, wages. Yep, I call wages. Yep. So that's. I was just thinking in my head what I have in my account, but So what happens? You work out the percentage of what is required based on your average P&L, and you go, well, last year I spent roughly 51% on materials, for example. That goes into that account. I spent 20% on wages. That goes in that account. 10%.
Just basically automating everything as much as you can.
Promise most banks you can't automate the payment, but you've got to do it manually. But the good thing about manual, actually thinking about these things. So
we do it very similarly, just to kind of close this out, because I think this is good information. So we've got an operating account.
Yeah.
So all my money goes into there. As soon as that hits, as soon as an invoice comes in, I divide that full amount by 11. Now I know that that's 10%. So I'm taking the full 10% of GST out and putting in a GST account. Now, for people who know business, you never pay the full 10%. You know, it's usually somewhere between 3 to 5 or 6% that you're actually paying. Because by the time you offset it with subbies and stuff coming in, that's what it lands on. But I know at any time I've got more money in that account that I know needs to be there.
It's like a firefighter account too.
But then once I've taken that 10% off, I then divide the next number by 17%, which I know is what my overheads are. And I put that overhead, I've got an overheads account, which pays me, which pays my VAs, which pays cars, which pays my contract, my pre-construction manager. I then make sure that every single payroll, the IOS comes out. So super, your PAYG for your team, and it goes into a different account. So I've always got money in these other accounts to pay those baseline requirements for the business. And then I know that the number that's in that project operating account is to operate projects. All the other stuff has been taken out and it's taken care of.
So super is actually becoming, I know this is going off track, you have to pay it each time you pay wages coming up.
Yeah.
So the next,
which is actually not a bad thing, to be honest.
It's actually small little payments. So it's not like you can pay at the end of the quarter or the end of the year.
So I didn't even realise that wasn't the standard, right?
Yeah.
While we're talking about, little business tips, I pay my BAS quarterly because I know that I've always got money in there.
Monthly. Is it?
Yeah, but you can actually pay your BAS monthly. So if you're not as good as paying your BAS and you're kind of always sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel to pay it, you can actually do it monthly.
Yeah.
Which makes it a little bit easier for your cash flow.
And people might be like, oh, it's my money. Why would I pay the ATO? You know what?
You know what?
It's not your money. You're not going to make any interest off it.
And this is why I personally split it up. And I'm digressing totally here,
No,
but I think it's
important,
good conversation.
Because it's that transition between being on the books, making X amount, and then going out on your own, and everyone wants to do it, but no one knows how to take these steps and break this down like this. Yeah.
You know what? We've got some power saws in the background. Let's just deal with it. We're recording on location. But I think, I look at that money that's in there as not my money. It's spent money.
But it's not your money.
I look at the money that's in that operating account, and that's the money that I can operate on.
And we've seen, this isn't just a builder problem or trade. Like we know architects that have engineers that have had this problem that haven't paid their BAS and tax, and that's the first thing the government flags.
Yeah.
And they're now no longer here. There's a reason. So it is a massive thing that you need to consider.
It serves you well when the government can see that you are paying your BAS on time and your IAS on time all the time.
Probably get away with a few more things if you're paying everything to their. If they're seeing money coming through each month, they ain't going to be going after you.
Anyway, that's Mindful Builder Business 101 for today.
So, but that doesn't take away from carpentry becoming the focal point of what you did.
Yeah.
And I think a really good point is that, say 20 years ago, if you're a carpenter, the only option was then become a builder, maybe a building surveyor.
That was the only, not the only option, but it was the most profitable option, I think. I saw a lot of the builders I worked for as an apprentice be able to flip houses and make a good living out of it. And it was set up a little bit differently for tradies to succeed to a certain extent, I feel like. Whereas now it's a lot harder.
Physics degree at uni, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
How long were you a chippy before that?
Including the apprenticeship, about 10 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So in the industry for a bit.
Yeah.
So then what did you do post-physics degree? Was it straight to Pro Clima?
Yeah, tried to get a job. It wasn't easy. Like I said, I had sort of... I was doing an internship at the uni in optics, and then was just looking for any sort of physics role, but everyone wants you to do a master's, PhD, and I'm just too old to keep going to uni and be a student.
What were you doing for work while you were studying?
My friend owns a sheet metal fabrication business. I'll just give him a hand.
Yeah, okay.
Stuff like that, cash jobs for carpentry friends,
Well, it's probably a young kid that not sure what they want to do, and they want to go to uni and do something. why not do a 3-4 year carpentry apprenticeship, become a bit of a handyman, handy woman, and then go to uni and you can earn some good money on the side.
I think it's such a good idea. Like we were talking about, went to Canada, but like you can live anywhere in the world and you have a valuable skill.
Yeah,
It gives you this absolute freedom to be able to, move to any city in the country and earn a good living. It's really empowering, and then develop your own assets as well when you eventually get to that point. I love it. It's such a good skill to have.
Yeah, and are you still pretty active now on trying to swing a hammer?
Yeah, trying to.
Yeah.
Nah, I've recently picked up a place, so yeah, demoing that.
Oh yeah,
Lovely.
Yeah, firing at will. It's good.
So your job at Pro Clima.
Yeah.
Did you know who Pro Clima were before this?
No.
Did you know anything about passive house or high performance home?
So I often say, as recently as January before I started here, sorry to my mate, but I wrapped his house in foil thinking I was doing him a favour. And then, starting here, learning here is just like you do passive house course, you get to sit next to Billy and Jesse and sort of just absorb all this information. And it's, been such a steep learning curve, but really, really informative. And sort of you look back on a lot of the buildings you did and just like, oh.
I think
We've all had that moment though.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. I've got two thoughts running through my brain, so I'm going to cross my phone. I saw Dan do this yesterday when we were at dinner table, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to come back to one of the...
Cross the hat for
cross my
reference.
fingers to remember. And he was like sitting there like talking with his hand crossed, and I'm like, why the fuck have you got your finger crossed? It's like I was trying to remember something, and then he forgot.
Such a den.
The point I was about to get to before, Matt, was we live in this bubble.
Yeah.
And you were talking this 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago, when you're like still wrapping. A year ago, and still wrapping a house in foil and thinking that was the good thing to do. Whereas we think about this now and think, fuck, that's, we're in 2026 now. Why the fuck are you still doing that? And it probably just goes to show how much the industry the broader industry needs to catch up.
And within a year, you've been able to absorb that much information, bring your carpentry and physics degree to a point where you presented at the Building Physics Forum in Australia.
Yeah, the other week. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a huge amount of learning in a year to be able to get up and speak in front of some of them, probably the smartest people.
And how'd you find that, getting up in front of a bunch of people? Because, you're a chippy.
Yeah, that's been another big learning curve. A lot of what I did through last year was going to events, training, presenting just on sort of, the realities of envelope design and condensation management and really breaking that public speaking bone and, trying to sort of work on that because that was terrifying.
Yeah,
it was. And the Building Physics conference, that was great, really good opportunity to just talk to some of those people in the industry. The actual presentation, I'm happy with the content. I think my presentation has room for improvement.
Do you know what though?
Start somewhere.
I've actually found, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm sort of trade background. I'm also university educated as well, but I've spent most of my time in the trade. I usually find the most endearing and engaging presentations and conversations when someone's up on stage is generally someone who hasn't come from university, profession, public speaking, as a tradie, we're not known to getting up and talking in front of people, and there's a rawness and a realness and something that's very familiar with someone coming up on stage and being uncomfortable.
Completely agree. In the timber construction conference last year, there was a lot of high-end conversations, engineers, architects. Then this truss manufacturer gets up and just is talking very, how would you say, frank about the industry and everything. And it's just so refreshing.
It's real,
to hear
it's
it.
real.
Yeah.
Some of my favourite presentations at Thrive, the Passive House Conference, are generally when the builder gets up. Because it's language, well, maybe it's because it's language that I'm more familiar with, but I think it's also just real.
We just tell it how it is sometimes.
Tell how it is, yeah.
You don't sugarcoat stuff.
And don't try to overcomplicate things. That's, engineers and scientists fall into the trap of assuming a certain baseline level of understanding or whatever and talking above it. Whereas I think a builder has a really good approach of just,
I think the person who I admire the most when it comes to public speaking, who's freaking smart, is Cameron Munro.
Like I haven't had the chance to hear him yet. I've heard him on podcasts and stuff.
The way that he can break down really complicated topics into something that I can understand it's a real skill. It's a real skill.
What does day-to-day look like for you? What do you actually sort of, we talk about technical knowledge here.
Yeah.
What are you helping solve detailing problems or?
Yeah, absolutely. So like builders, if you call Pro Clima generally, or talk to me or Billy. But so generally answering technical questions, helping on sort of architectural plans and designs.
Designing out box gutters.
Well, I was actually about to ask this good question, box gutters. What's your biggest hate of a detail that comes to you across your desk? That you're just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, there's a few ones.
List them. Let's go for it.
I mean, box gutters is the low-hanging fruit. Unnecessarily flat roofs, balconies over living areas, planter boxes.
But they kind of are all, and what's the common theme here?
Waterproofing.
Yeah.
Like, don't try to detail something that's obviously going to leak over a living space. It's just never
It used to be in the code you couldn't put a balcony over a living space.
Did it really?
Yeah, and I think they removed it. Don't quote me on that, but I'm 95% sure.
I'll have to ask Billy, my encyclopedia.
We've brought up box gutters a few times, but Matt and I have been here for a couple of days now, and we're actually out the back yesterday, looking at a computer screen. You and Billy were looking at, and I'm like, you're like, well, what should we do here? And I'm like, get rid of the box gutter and put an eaves gutter on it. Like,
good answer.
And I joke, but if you think about it logically, I understand from an architectural point of view why you might want it. I get it, but yeah, I can understand aesthetically. I get it.
Yeah, okay.
But you could, but if that's what is going to set your house apart, then you have failed as a designer.
Yeah.
Put an eaves gutter on it, and then put the design prowess somewhere else. Because you want to get that water as far away from a building as possible.
It's not like only us as like builders and stuff, but like I have plumbing friends there's very specific ways to design a box gutter to work, but even still it's risky. And it's like, why introduce that risk into your structure?
But most people don't actually calculate the flow rate of the box gutter.
Right, exactly.
They just go, 2 degree roof. The minimum code is 300 high, 175 mil high.
Let's just make it a little bit wider. But then, do you know what it's not taking into consideration?
That might not work.
What is the fact that the owner should get up there every 6 months and clean the gutters and box gutters and somehow.
Yeah, but that is a guess. That you've got to calculate the flow rate of that water coming off and how much square meters on that roof is going.
No, I get all of that, but in my mind, that should just be done.
If you've got something in your house that can cause a critical failure from a tennis ball, I think you've got bigger design issues.
What do you mean by that?
If you throw a tennis ball on the roof, it clogs your overflow and then it just leaks into your house.
Yeah,
it's a really good point.
Because they all come down to water, and I think the detail, I think we need to firstly understand that Pro Clima isn't a waterproofing system.
No. Very important to sort of, understand. It's like we encourage envelope design in its entirety, but like waterproofing and, like wet area waterproofing, roof, box gutter waterproofing, planter boxes, that's a whole separate science and field of the code that people...
What's the minimum fall? So let's just work backwards here. Mm-hmm. Minimum roof pitch is actually 1 degree, which is...
Oh, really?
Isn't it mind-boggling?
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is I constantly get plans that are like the spec'd Anticon on top of a 1 degree pitch. Like if the house moves, and where I build, where it's P-class most of the time, and in our store reports we can sometimes expect, I've seen up to 60 to 66%, 66 millimeters of movement expected in the soil. That 1 degree might now, if that house moves, might be -1 degree.
Oh, and
it goes the opposite way.
If you're sagging Anticon over the battens, if you're at 1 degree, what's that sag? It's -3 degrees.
Yeah, and so what? So I understand when people want to build on the height limitations and they've got their res code. I think res code needs to ease up to allow an extra space for these structures to be on a pitch. But I think we should be looking at everything has to be minimum 5 degrees.
I'd like it. But the reality is pliable building membranes, they say you can go down to 2 degrees, which is not great. Like, what's the difference between 1 and 2 degrees? 5 degrees, yeah. Like, if you think about it over, I can't do the maths off the top of my head, but yeah, if you got a 5 degree roof, you've still barely coming up on that encroaching sort of thing. So if you can design your roof to be, 300 mil lower and have that 5 degree fall, you instantly just put a better sort of long-term protection over your house.
But where I'm getting at is we don't design, or the people we usually see don't design at 1 degree. A box to gutter is 10% of 1 degree. That's the fall that we have to achieve for a box gutter. So it's practically flat.
Yeah. And then,
and water will pool. That tin could...
The tin could,
It could can or like...
100%. And there's condensation, night sky radiation on the bottom of the box gutter. There's if you do have water underneath it, how do you drain that? Where do you drain that? How does it dry? Is it going to drain because it's sitting at half a degree? There's so many issues with it that it's just...
If you waterproof it,
Please
now putting it as a vapor blocker, like if you you start to really... It's ironic that the code's like, you can't use chipboard to put your box gutter on. So they've identified that water's getting through and leaking, but putting a cement sheet doesn't fix the issue. It just means that material doesn't rot, but the water's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, and it will heat up and dry into your structure, and then you get mold risk.
But yes, so so box gutter, we can put planet boxes there. A planet box and box are just the same thing. Just literally the same thing.
Yeah, and I suppose sort of window design's a big one that is a point of contention that I come across a lot.
Talk to me about that. Because I feel like window designs, the answers are all there.
For us, but like there's a mismatch between what appears in the code and sort of what we recommend doing.
So are you talking about the continuous flashing at the head?
Yeah, stuff like that. The 110 mil, that's essentially the snake skin around that comes attached to an alley window.
Yeah.
That still appears in the code and is like some certifiers have a bugbear about it.
Saying that they would prefer that over your tape.
Yeah, exactly. But it's verified through 4284 testing. Like it's a compliant method of install. But it's that whole DTS versus...
Yeah. What's in the code and what's easy.
So talk to me through DTS. Quickly touch on what DTS is.
Deemed to satisfy is sort of, the way I describe it is the shittest you can build a house without going to jail.
So just for clarity, these are pathways in the NCC to comply.
Yes.
Yep.
So DTS is what they outline in the NCC and through standards and stuff of compliant method of install, but it is the minimum compliancy yet.
So the NCC has all the clauses and that's like the basics. If it doesn't fall in that, you then fall into the DTS?
No, so DTS is the
basics.
Basics, yeah.
Okay.
Then beyond that is a verification method. So each clause will have a list of test methods that you can do to verify that your system's watertight, weathertight, that sort of stuff. So that's sort of the better performing.
And that's what you guys are?
Yeah, that's where we sit. We do so much testing on our stuff. Yeah. So that's sort of the avenue we generally head down. And then you have stuff like evidence of suitability, which is like AVG1 or something. But that's more, research articles from the States and saying, yes, I can put exterior insulation on my CLT structure, even though it's technically not deemed to satisfy.
And you have kickback from building surveyors along a lot of these things. And when you start to produce a lot of this information, do they get it or they're like, well, it's just
no one, every builder knows that certifiers can sometimes be stubborn, so I'll leave it at that. But most of the time when you explain it like that to someone and you're like, hey, this is a pathway, yes, but there's also the verification stuff and you can outline it. But that's why there's a popularity of things like CodeMark and brands appraisals, because it takes away all that guessing and it's just a green stamp that a certifier can say, great, don't have to look at that.
Is Pro Clima stuff CodeMarked?
Yes. It's not a simple process because they're quite diligent.
It's cost.
No, the cost isn't an issue. It's more just, what are they code marking, and then they'll send you a list of things that tests they want to see. And it's just, it's a process. It's not as easy as just going
you
to
have
them and throwing money at them.
Yeah, do you have CodeMark on your window tapes for this issue that you talk about?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Because I've never been pulled up on it, but we do work a lot with Dave from Permit Approvals Plus, who's been on the podcast, and he can quickly see that it makes sense at what we're doing compared to the snakeskin. As a building surveyor, you should be just
get a hose and see if it makes sense.
Yeah. Like, that's actually a good thing if you're a builder and your building surveyor is questioning it.
Go and get a hose.
Yeah, go get a hose and ask him how long you want to stand there for, 1, 2, 3 hours. Say, I'll rip out the under window and I'll put it in the snakeskin and I'll hose that down. And then you tell me if it's compliant or not.
Yeah, and it's also like, that's one way to do it on site, but like at the design stage, if a surveyor picks it up and they're like, oh, where's the code mark for this? It can be frustrating having to explain those methods of compliance. So, CodeMark's a good thing. There's a reason it's there, but it's a process to get it for everything, like window details. You can get the product code marked, but for details, it's a bit more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why the code does what it does. Like, I get it. But the fact that it's so slow to then pick up this stuff is probably the most infuriating part. Like, if we have, if we're trying to protect the consumer, really, because that's what the code's there for, why not put in measures like what we're just talking about now, which I think are a low-hanging fruit? I know. We can sit here and rip
So
apart
what's sort of frustrating on that is, like, I saw when they were the VBA, they're doing this study into like why balconies leak and why windows leaking. How about instead of spending the millions to do the study, everyone like, hey guys, got the answer. It's because they weren't using the right products, so they weren't installed properly. Yeah. Save yourself the millions in the investigation, and they weren't tested and verified. You solve the problem without a study.
Products are definitely a part of it, but also design and like understanding the basic concepts. Like a big one for windows leaking in commercial facades is an interior air seal. And you sort of think of that as like, oh, it's not really weatherproofing, but under any sort of pressure buffeting against the structure, that's trying to equalize through your window junctions. And if you haven't sealed that properly, it's going to pull moisture in like a vacuum cleaner. Huh. So that's what I presented on at the Air Building Physics conference.
Yeah.
And that
the building thing.
But it's that concept of, it's something as simple as, a lot of builders like spray foam it to add insulation. Spray foam?
This is a really important part.
We can dive into that. I'll cross my fingers.
If you do an open cell spray foam, you might be in a bit of problem.
Totally. But reality is, if detail easy, tape up your inside. If you've got tape anyway, you've completely moderated that pressure zone between your window junction.
So interesting, yes. I'm about to do a passive house, and we're not using Intello for the first time ever.
Okay.
Should I, weather is a consideration, but so now I think air tightness, should I just have an extra few rolls of the Explorer and just go around and just tape the junction just to my stud and top?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting, because we've got a project which we're about to start which just has an external barrier, and we're going for, our goal is one air change now, which I reckon we'll get, but we haven't allowed to tape the inside.
Yeah,
it's what they.
But we are foam.
It's more important
for foaming, but
in commercial under significant pressure, like wind pressures. But it's good practice for any sort of window weatherproofing. Yeah.
And that's where it's going to leak.
Can I ask on that though? Like, why the passive house without the Intello? Like,
no, it's a cost.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, the air tightness, internal membrane and battening system probably adds 45 grand to the process.
Okay.
Same on this one. This one's a cost-sensitive project, and
we push for it every single project.
We're still going for good air tightness. So we are targeting one good windows or BenQ PVC, and we are putting a dedicated ventilation system through.
Same here.
But in our climate, the risk. Alex Slater's on this project, so he's done some calculations and some modelling, and there's no risk of any cold spots in that wall.
Yeah, okay.
You got 140 walls as well.
140 walls.
That's a key point. I've got 140 as well.
Yeah.
So,
and that's probably interesting to sit on for a second, because 90 mil walls would have made a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
They would condensate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're keeping this structure warm, if we understand sort of basic building physics, more insulation, warmer structure. So
the basics of building physics. I think it's like three important envelopes to consider. There's your weather tightness envelope on the outside. And everyone's heard of the red pen with air tightness, how you draw around your structure.
I've never done that.
It looks good on presentations, but
loves it. Yeah.
But you should do it 3 times almost, like your external weather tightness envelope, your thermal envelope.
So insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your air tightness envelope if you're going down that path. And your weather tightness and your air tightness can be the same thing. But I think thermal envelope's just as important as those other two, because if you have these gaps and thermal bridges, it adds up so quickly. One, to the efficiency of the structure, but also the health and durability and cold spots and condensation.
Yeah. Well, the NCC punishes you if you have more than 5% gaps in the insulation layer. You lose 50% of the effective R value. So you might put R6 in your ceiling. You got 5% gaps when you've got your heating and cooling pipes and your ducts and lights and downlights. Your R6 is no longer R6; it's R3.
And it's crazy. Like, we're talking about 5 years ago. I was building houses. And I never thought about that once. I was jamming in.
You're not meant to know.
The bats straight out of the bag. And it's just something I wish was more.
And stuffing it into crevices and not 100%. Thinking about it.
Yeah. And I just wish it was just something spoken about, even as like a module in TAFE, is just sort of envelope design.
Well, it's probably important to know why that doesn't work, because insulation is essentially millions and millions and millions of little bubbles. Mm-hmm. And if you compress those bubbles, well, they can't store.
Exactly.
You're
so
moving
the
them
thermal
away.
Resistance comes from trapped air pockets.
Yeah.
This is also another problem I have with Anticon, but I'm
Go for
dancing
it.
around.
No, don't dance. Don't dance. Let's just not say Anticon. Let's say just go for it.
Yeah, okay. Well,
because it's used all the time. I know architects that listen to this podcast are still speccing it, and it's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
And
you're liable.
And not only that, well, there's that part, but it's also being added into your NatHES assessment as well as part of the R value. And it's actually not doing anything. Do you know what? The only good thing about Anticon is that it does dull the rain when it rains.
So I hear. I haven't seen any data on it.
Yeah.
But that makes sense to me. I hear that.
I have anecdotal evidence of I guess switching 6 or 7 years ago from building normal co-build homes and using Anticon to building high performance and passive homes. And like the first couple, they're like, we really, we hear the noise more. It's a different sound because your Anticon's like.
Did they have an internal air tightness layer?
No.
Yeah, that's.
But if you talk to an acoustic consultant, they're never saying put bulk insulation up there. They're saying put a rigid FC sheet up for acoustic dampening. Yeah. So I'm no expert on acoustics, but I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding, and anecdotally and intuitively that makes sense, right? You're like, I've got a blanket under my sheet, it's going to dampen it, but I don't know if that's the case. I don't.
Well, look, I mean, now that we're putting significant amounts of insulation in our roof, and also from most projects now we're making them a warm roof, so you're actually not getting that sound to go into the attic space. Again, I'm not an acoustic engineer, but intuitively stopping the sound from getting into here and then reverberating around. And Cam, please catch me out here if I'm wrong. But we're seeing a shift now that's not as much of an issue.
And I don't want to go down this road.
I also love hearing rain on the roof.
Yeah. But warm roof, Australia's definition of a warm roof to the traditional definition of warm roof is actually very different.
Oh, true.
Yes. I think it's helpful for an Aussie cheapie or builder to just understand not having cold dead air above your insulation in your attic. Yeah. Because we build trusses. A lot of places in the world don't build trusses. That's where the difference is.
In a nutshell, warm roof, pushing your insulation right up to the underside
externally if you can.
Right to the underside of the roof sheet, whereas a typical cold roof construction is insulation on top of the plaster.
And in that case as well, just try a design with rafters. If you've got a gable roof, ridge beam, rafter. Yeah. That solves so much.
Unfortunately, it does become a cost thing though. So again, I think I've said this before, any truss manufacturers out there that can come up with a really good detail, and I'm thinking more about where the heel sits on top of
I was just about to say the same thing.
Heel sits on top of the top plate to increase that up. Because obviously your truss, and I'm using my hands here, but truss comes down in a triangle, and if you've got R6 in your roof and you're stuffing it into the corner, it ain't R6 when it gets in the corner.
100%.
We ask all our roof trusses to have a 300 mil heel.
Yeah, bring. That's what I'm saying. Bring the heel up,
Okay,
but then you also need to figure out a really good, efficient way to then have the insulation pushed up to the top.
That's the challenge.
Because you've got rafters and it holds it nice and tight. Run a couple of straps through, job done.
Really overlooked thermal bridge is that sort of top plate rafter connection straight through there.
Yep.
See it often.
Anticon.
Anticon is the bane of my existence. No, it's not that bad. It is. It's just one of those sort of relics that like everyone just sort of, you know, as a builder, we were talking about like intuition before. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Foil reflects it, the heat away, that's all good. The reality is it has that trapped air insulation on it. So what happens when you're, instead of having trapped air pockets, you're compressing it between a roof sheet.
So it's no longer doing anything.
So now you have roof sheet, compressed nothing glass fibre, foil, sometimes metal roof batten, metal truss. It's just a convection pathway, like massive thermal bridge at that point.
Yeah.
And you've got that all over your roof structure. This is when you're seeing like ghosting of condensation on roofs and stuff. It's where it's hitting that. So the way that Anticon is supposed to be anti-condensation is it's supposed to keep the roof sheet warm. So during night sky radiation, you don't get condensation forming on the underside. At the points where that's now compressed, you don't have that continuous warmth. So you get that condensation occurring. And now you've got this saggy, essentially bowl of wool to hold that moisture there.
It's not even, so it's not wool, it's glass fibre, and it sucks and holds moisture. It's
Exactly.
not hydrophobic.
And you can see it at the gutter where it hangs over into the gutter. Go next time you're up cleaning your gutters, check what that looks like and how much it falls apart in your hand and how full of water it is. And you know, end up with things like phantom leaks because all you're doing is rolling it 200 mil overlap. So when you've got that sag and that fills up with water and it tracks down to that overlap, you're like got a leak in your kitchen and you're looking for it for months and you can't find it.
And the other thing, so it was designed for sheds.
Yes.
And somehow,
it's probably pretty good for sheds.
and it actually somehow made its way into the housing, because I think where the issue went along is it was a quick 1.5 R gain for the energy assessor.
Yeah, to us, I don't know if that's on the topic with Jesse, but he knows a lot about the history of the where Anticon came from, and yeah.
He's also very diplomatic and very, one thing you guys about Pro Clima is you're really good at not poo-pooing other brands or companies.
Oops.
You know what? It's good to be like that when you know you've got the best product.
Yes. Now, press for time.
Mm-hmm.
Hand to the mindful moment.
Yeah.
So mindful moment, our great friends at MEGT, Australia's leading apprenticeship experts. Now, Dave, the whole idea of this segment is to maybe give advice to someone, I shouldn't say young anymore because the government are trying to introduce 50-year-old apprentices into the industry. So anyone doing their apprenticeship.
50 years young.
Yes. So by the time you finish your apprenticeship, you're 55 looking to retire. So someone might be coming into the industry and we're generally trying to find bits of nuggets of gold that they can progress their career to do better. We've had people explain that they did their Cert 4 or diploma as a third year. Now, I'd love to hear a little bit more and give some advice from your perspective of carpentry was the base of what you did.
Carpentry gives you, first and foremost, like the most grounded and intuitive understanding of engineering, physics, and everything, because you're putting it up, you're feeling what works and what doesn't work. You know, you sort of make mistakes along the way, and it gives you that sort of opportunity to grow.
Well, it's instant feedback. It's what it is.
Instant feedback, absolutely, yeah. So I think that's like just a huge like benefit to sort of have that exposure and experience at a younger age or 50.
Yeah, I think so. So Billy is obviously an incredibly intelligent human being, right? And I definitely got that. And I understand that you guys kind of have a sort of a similar. Sorry,
Dave's not.
Dave, no, hear me out here. You guys kind of have a similar role. However, the conversations that we're having today just feel different because you've got this understanding of how the things go together. And I'm not saying that, one's better than the other.
No,
but it's a different
epic to have both and sit next to each other.
It's a
Batman
different
and Robin.
It's a different conversation, and having a chat with you today kind of allows me to kind of understand it from maybe a more accessible use of language than say when Billy's explaining something.
Brownie in motion or whatever.
Do you know? Yeah, and look, I get all of that too. And we've got the benefit of having done this podcast for a while now and been interested in the stuff. But I think having a carpentry background for me is a couple of things, right? One, it's just that satisfaction of being able to do stuff, And although my wife is constantly on my case to change handles in the house. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But the thing is, if I wanted to,
I want to go down that avenue.
No, I can change it if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I can also jump on put the tool belt on the weekend and build an al fresco.
Yeah.
But then I can also jump in here and do a podcast. I can also go and do that. You have then decided to take that next step, get further educated, and then come into a role which was almost made for you. I guess the whole idea of this MEG Mindful Moment is just for people to see that it doesn't just stop at carpentry. Like there's so many other opportunities for it to come from, but such a great building block.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really, really cool as well from what I've been doing is when you talk to the young chippies coming through or like even apprentices and stuff, there's such an eagerness from them to like build better and understand. And yes, it's probably like the crowds I'm speaking to, but I really get that impression, like even my mates who are still building, when I'm having a beer at the pub with them talking about it, they're like eyes light up.
So if you're an apprentice or a carpenter or any trade and go, we don't use building physics the way we build. If you get two 90 by 45 timbers and you laminate them with some framing nails
You're
together.
an engineer, baby.
That's called physics. That's changing the structure of the timber.
Yeah.
So you are doing it every single day at work, screwing some ply to the building.
Yeah.
That's building physics.
But then also the houses that you build, building physics exists there.
Yeah.
You're
And it
creating an
always
environment.
and whether you've like been internalizing it or not, you're developing an intuition for it, like basic things like, what windows you're using, where you're putting your insulation, thinking your Anticon's doing something, but it's not seeing that sweating in the building when you're building, all that stuff.
And even just knowing if you're a renovation carpenter, you just know that if you're removing cladding from around a window, there's a really good chance you're going to see rot there.
There's a very good chance.
So you have been exposed to building physics and the impacts of not managing it.
Yeah. So, I think it's exciting to see the eagerness coming up with the new generation. I hope it brings more people into the trade because I think it's super important.
Yep.
Dave, thank you.
Thanks for coming along, man.
Pleasure, guys. Thank
Cheers.
you.